Go ahead. If you are so brave, just leave my daughter-in-law. Brittany challenged me, her voice dripping with venom as she swirled her Chardonnay. She looked me dead in the eye and said, I would not survive a week without their charity. I simply placed the heavy brass house keys on the cold marble kitchen counter, the sound echoing like a gunshot in the silent room. By the very next day, they were in a frenzy, calling nonstop, begging me to pick up the phone, but they did not know that the man they treated like a servant was the only reason they still had a roof over their heads. Before I continue this story, let me know where you are watching from. In the comments below, hit like and subscribe if you have ever had to stand up to family who underestimated your worth. I am Augustus Mercer, 68 years old, and for the last 5 years I have played the role of the quiet, retired grandfather who fixes the leaky faucets and walks the dog. I let my son Tyler and his ambitious wife Brittany believe that I was a washed-up old man living off a meager pension, and their generosity living in the guest suite of their sprawling Connecticut mansion meant I was close to my grandson Leo. But it also meant I was the target of Brittany constant, passive-aggressive bullying. She treated me like an embarrassing stain on her perfect designer life. But last night, at the dinner party, the stain finally decided to wipe itself clean. The evening started like any other tense performance Tyler was hosting. Dominic Russo, a major investor for his construction firm, and Brittany was desperate to impress. She had spent thousands on catering flowers and a string quartet. She had also insisted that I stay in the kitchen out of sight, only coming out to clear the plates. She told the guests I enjoyed helping out, but the truth was she did not want her wealthy friends to see me in my faded cardigan and orthotic shoes around 8 o'clock. Brittany snapped her fingers at me from the dining room table. Gus, bring more wine, she commanded. Not even looking at me, I picked up the vintage Bordeaux bottle, a bottle I had secretly bought, and replaced the cheap one she purchased, and walked toward the table. My knee, which has been acting up since my days working on the shipping docks, gave a sudden buckle. I stumbled, just a fraction, but it was enough. A splash of red wine landed on the edge of the Persian rug, not even on a guest, just on the rug. The room went silent. Brittany stood up so fast, her chair scraped violently against the floor. For God's sake, can you not do anything right? She shrieked, her face contorted with rage. She turned to Dominic and offered a breathless apology. Please excuse my father-in-law. He is getting a bit senile and clumsy in his old age. Then she turned back to me, her eyes narrowing into slits. Clean it up, Gus, now, and try not to embarrass us further than you already have. I looked at Tyler, my son, the boy I had raised alone after his mother died. I waited for him to speak, to defend me, to tell his wife to lower her voice, but Tyler just swirled his glass, studying the crimson liquid, pretending I was invisible. That silence hurt more than the insult. I bent down and started dabbing the rug with a napkin, but Brittany was not finished. She wanted a show, you know. It is exhausting, she said to the table, loud enough for me to hear, down on the floor. We give him a home, we feed him, and this is how he repays us, honestly. If it were not for Tyler's sense of obligation to his dead mother, memory, we would have put him in a home years ago. He is just a drain on our resources. I stopped wiping the rug. The mention of Catherine, my late wife, made the blood freeze in my veins. Catherine, who had worked double shifts so Tyler could have piano lessons. Catherine, who had made me promise on her deathbed to always look out for our son. I slowly stood up, my knees popping painfully, but my back straight. I looked at Brittany, and for the first time in 5 years, I did not look down. Do not speak about Catherine, I said, my voice low and steady. The room went deadly quiet. Even the string quartet seemed to stop playing. Brittany laughed, a high-pitched, nervous sound that grated on my ears. Excuse me, she scoffed. Did the charity case just speak up? You are lucky we even include you in this life. Gus, look at you. You have nothing, no money, no property, no legacy, except for what Tyler gives you. If you are so proud, get out. But I guarantee you, without our money, you would not last a week in the real world. You would be starving on the street. I looked at Tyler again. Tyler, tell me, Do you agree with her? I asked. Tyler sighed, running a hand through his hair. Look, Dad, Brittany is just stressed about the investment. Do not make a scene, just go to your room. We will talk about this in the morning. That was the moment the final thread of my patience snapped. That was the moment the father died, and the businessman woke up. I did not shout. I did not flip the table. I simply untied the apron Brittany had made me wear and folded it neatly. Placing it on the back of the chair, I walked into the kitchen and grabbed the set of keys to the house, the keys to the SUV. I let them borrow and the access card to the gated community. I walked back into the dining room and placed them gently on the marble counter. Clinging, clang, clang, 1 week, I said calmly. You said I would not last 1 week. Let us test that theory. Brittany rolled her eyes. Oh, stop being dramatic, Gus. Where are you going to go? The homeless shelter. Leave the keys, get out, and do not come back, crawling when you get hungry. Because I am changing the locks tomorrow. I turned to Dominic Russo, the investor who was watching the scene with wide eyes. I nodded to him respectfully. Enjoy the wine, Dominic. It is a 1982 Petrus. I bought it myself, not that they would know the difference. I walked out the front door into the pouring rain. I did not take a coat. I only had my small leather satchel that I always kept by the door containing my passport and a single black titanium credit card. As the heavy oak door slammed shut behind me, I heard Brittany laughing. Tell him to enjoy the park bench tonight. Tyler, he will be back by breakfast. I walked down the long driveway, the rain soaking through my shirt. But I did not feel cold. I felt a fire burning in my chest, a fire that was about to consume everything they thought they owned. I did not walk to a park bench. I walked to the end of the block where I pulled out my old flip phone and dialed a number. I had not called in 5 years. It rang once. Yes, sir, a gruff voice answered. Pendergrass, it is Gus. There was a pause on the other end. Then the tone shifted to absolute professionalism. Welcome back. Augustus, I assumed this day would come. I looked back at the mansion glowing on the hill. The house I had paid for, the cars I had leased under my name, the lifestyle I had subsidized while pretending to be poor. Initiate Protocol Omega, I said, staring at the rain-slicked pavement. I want all ties severed by morning. Account every guarantee, every access code. Burn it all down. Understood, sir, Pendergrass replied. Where will you be staying? The St. Regis, New York. Send the car. 10 minutes later, a black Lincoln Navigator pulled up to the curb. The driver hopped out with an umbrella, opening the rear door for me. Good evening, Mr. Mercer. It has been a long time. I slid into the warm leather interior, accepting the dry towel he offered. Take me to the city. James and James. Turn off your phone. I do not want to be disturbed. As we drove away, I did not look back. I closed my eyes and took the first deep breath of freedom I had tasted in years. They wanted to see if I could survive a week without them. They were about to find out if they could survive a single day without me. Regis staff greeted me by name when I arrived at midnight. My suite was ready, the same one I used to stay in when I ran Mercer Logistics before I sold the operational rights and went into hiding. The manager had placed a bottle of scotch and a bowl of fresh dog treats on the table, knowing I would eventually bring my golden retriever Barnaby, though tonight Barnaby was still hostage in that house. That was the only thing that worried me, but Pendergrass assured me the dog would be retrieved by a handler in the morning. I poured myself a glass of scotch and stood by the window looking out at the Manhattan skyline. The city lights were bright and indifferent, perfectly matching my mood. I took a sip, letting the burn settle in my stomach. I pulled out my iPad and logged into the master control system of the Connecticut house. It was a smart home system I had installed myself, programmed under a sub-server that only I could access. I saw the status lights, all green, heating on security on smart fridge connected. I tapped the screen, disabling the autopay feature for the internet, electricity, and gas. Then I accessed the smart home hub and reset the master user, removing Tyler and Brittany admin privileges. I set the thermostat to a chilling 60 degrees and locked the control panel with a new passcode. Finally, I went to the bank accounts, linked to the house expenses accounts, that were technically in my name but which I allowed them to use. I clicked. Freeze. Sleep well, children, I whispered to the empty room. Tomorrow class begins, back in Connecticut. The sun rose over the manicured lawn of the Mercer estate, but inside the chaos had already begun. Brittany woke up shivering. She pulled the duvet tighter around herself. But the cold was biting Tyler, she groaned, kicking her husband. Wake up, it is freezing in here. Did you leave the window open? Tyler groaned, rolling over and reaching for his phone to check the thermostat. Damn it, he muttered, tapping the screen furiously. The app is not working. It says user access denied. What do you mean denied? Brittany sat up, her hair a mess. Hurry up and fix it. I have a Zoom meeting with the interior design board at 10, and I need to shower. Tyler got out of bed, shivering. Walking to the wall panel, he pressed the buttons, but the screen remained black, displaying only a red lock icon and the words, Contact Administrator. Dad must have messed with it before he left, Tyler said, his teeth chattering. He is the only one who knows how to program this stupid system. I will call the technician later. Just go make some coffee. I need caffeine. Brittany wrapped herself in a silk robe and stomped downstairs, muttering about incompetent old men. She walked into the kitchen, expecting the smell of fresh brewing coffee. Gus always had the pot ready by 7 a.m. But the kitchen was cold and silent. The counter was empty, no coffee, no bagel, no fresh fruit sliced and arranged on a plate. Useless, she hissed, slamming the cabinet open to find the coffee beans. She poured them into the grinder and pressed the button. Nothing happened. She pressed it again, silence. Tyler, she screamed. The power in the kitchen is out. Tyler came running down, buttoning his shirt. Stop screaming. Brittany, my head hurts from the wine last night. He checked the breaker box in the pantry. Everything looks fine. Wait, is the internet working? Brittany checked her phone, no Wi-Fi signal. Oh my God, she gasped. I cannot connect to Instagram. I cannot upload my morning story. Tyler, fix this, now. Call the internet company. Tyler pulled out his cell phone and dialed the provider. He was on hold for 5 minutes, pacing the freezing kitchen. While Brittany tried to mash coffee beans with a rolling pin, finally a representative answered. Yes, hello? This is Tyler Mercer. My internet is down. I am sorry, Mr. Mercer, the representative said cheerfully. But that account has been suspended as of 4 a.m. this morning, due to a request from the account holder. I am the account holder, Tyler snapped. Actually, sir, the account is under an Augustus Mercer. He flagged the service for immediate termination, due to relocation. Tyler froze. He looked at Brittany, who was watching him with wide, angry eyes. Relocation, he whispered. Dad canceled the internet. Brittany grabbed the phone, put it on speaker. Listen to me, you incompetent idiot. We are the residents of this house. Turn it back on right now, or I will sue you. I am sorry. The voice remained polite but firm without the primary account holders. Authorization or a new contract with a security deposit of $500. We cannot restore service. Would you like to set up a new account? Tyler hung up the phone, throwing it onto the counter. He is bluffing, Tyler said, his face red. He is trying to scare us. He wants us to beg him to come back. Well, I am not doing it. Let him play his games. He will be back in 2 days when he runs out of money for that motel he is staying in. 2 days, Brittany shrieked. I have a deadline today, Tyler. I cannot work without internet. And who is going to walk? Barnaby the dog has been barking for an hour. I have to go to the office, Tyler said, grabbing his keys. I have that meeting with Dominic. If I land this deal, we will be so rich we can hire a full staff. We won't need my father. Simply buy a new router on your way to the salon. He walked to the garage, pressing the button for the automatic door. Nothing happened. The heavy metal door stayed firmly shut, trapping his Porsche inside. You have got to be kidding me, Tyler yelled, kicking the door. The garage was on the same smart grid as the house locked down. He tried the manual release, but the mechanism was jammed or rusted. He had never maintained it, because Gus always took care of the maintenance. I have to take an Uber, Tyler yelled back at the house. This is ridiculous. As he stood in the driveway waiting for a car in the cold morning air, he saw the neighbor, Mrs. Higgins, walking her poodle. She stopped and looked at him. Where is Gus? She asked. I did not see him in the garden this morning. He is on a vacation. Tyler lied, trying to look successful, despite his shivering. He needed a break. Mrs. Higgins looked at him strangely. Well, I hope he is okay. He is the only one who knows how to fix my sprinklers. Tyler got into the Uber, slamming the door, pulled out his phone to call me, but I had already blocked his number. He sent a text instead, "Stop acting like a child. Dad, turn the power back on or do not bother coming back." I read the text from the comfort of the hotel restaurant as I cut into my eggs. Benedict, I took a sip of freshly squeezed orange juice and smiled, simply deleting the message. The waiter approached with a silver tray. "Excuse me, Mr. Mercer, a Mr. Pendergrass is here to see you." "Send him in," I said, wiping my mouth. Pendergrass walked in, carrying a thick leather briefcase. He looked like a shark, in a three-piece suit. He sat down and opened the file. "Protocol Omega is fully active, sir. We have notified the bank, the utility companies, and the insurance providers, but there is something else you should see." He slid a paper across the table. It was a credit report notification. "Your son just tried to use the company credit card to buy a $5,000 espresso machine for his office. It was declined." I chuckled. "Declined? Why? Because—" Pendergrass smiled, showing his teeth. "Because you removed yourself as the guarantor at 9 a.m. sharp, without your credit score, backing him. Tyler S. has business. Credit rating just dropped from a AAA to a junk status. The bank has automatically frozen all lines of credit pending a review." "So he has no access to capital?" I asked. "None." Pendergrass confirmed, and Dominic Russo just called my office. He is very unhappy that the check for the materials bounced this morning. I leaned back in my chair, visualizing the scene: Tyler walking into his office, trying to act like a CEO, while his entire financial foundation crumbled beneath his feet. "Call Dominic," I said. "Tell him I am no longer involved, and if he wants to get paid, he needs to collect from Tyler personally, today." Pendergrass nodded, making a note. "And the house, send the notice," I said, my voice hardening. "Tell them they have 6 days to vacate the property, is being listed for sale." "But sir," Pendergrass hesitated, "that is their home." "No," I corrected him, taking a sip of coffee, "that is my house. They just occupy space inside it. And they are about to learn that space is a luxury, not a right." Back at the office, Tyler walked in, ready to salvage his day. He smiled at his receptionist. "Morning, Sarah. Get me Dominic Russo on the line." Sarah looked up, her face pale. "Mr. Mercer, Mr. Russo is already here. He is in your office, and he looks furious." Tyler frowned, pushed open the door to his office, expecting a friendly chat. Dominic was sitting in Tyler's chair, his feet up on the desk, holding a bounced check. "Dominic," Tyler said, forcing a smile. "Good to see you. I assume we are ready to move forward with Phase 2? Dominic stood up slowly. He was a large man with hands like shovels. He tossed the check onto the desk. "This piece of paper is worthless." "Tyler, what?" Tyler picked it up. "That is impossible. There is plenty of cash in the operating account." "Not anymore," Dominic said. "Your bank called me. They said the guarantor pulled out. They froze everything. Look, kid, I liked your dad. He was a man of honor. I gave you credit because of him, but now he tells me he is out, so I want my money." "It is just a glitch," Tyler stammered. "I will call my dad. He is just having a tantrum." "I do not care about your family drama," Dominic growled. "I care about my $200,000. You have until 5 p.m. to bring me a cashier's check, or my trucks turn around and I strip every piece of lumber from your job site." Dominic walked out, slamming the door so hard the glass rattled. Tyler sank into his chair, reaching for his phone. Again he dialed my number again, straight to voicemail. He dialed home. "Brittany, pick up," he shouted when she answered. "Do not scream at me," she yelled back. "I am at Starbucks because the house is an icebox. And my card just got declined for a latte." "Tyler, what is going on?" Tyler stared at the phone, realizing for the first time that the safety net he had been bouncing on for 30 years was gone. "Dad," he whispered. "He is actually doing it. Doing what Brittany snapped. He is cutting us off," Tyler said, his voice trembling. He is not just leaving Brittany, he is turning off the lights on his way out. "Well, fix it," she screamed. "Go find him and apologize. Tell him whatever he wants to hear. Just get the money back online." "I do not know where he is," Tyler admitted. "Then find him," Brittany yelled, "or do not bother coming home." "Oh wait, we do not have a home anymore, because a realtor just put a for sale sign in the front yard." Tyler dropped the phone. The silence in his office was deafening. Far worse than the silence at the dinner table the night before. He looked out the window at the city he felt big in yesterday. But today, the city looked like a mouth ready to swallow him whole. And I was just getting started. The vibration of my phone on the mahogany table was a short, sharp buzz that cut through the silence of my hotel suite. I glanced at the screen and smiled. It was a notification from the bank application, simply stating, "Transaction declined, amount $24,000. Merchant Luxury Living Designs, location, Greenwich, Connecticut." I took a sip of my scotch and leaned back in the leather chair, closing my eyes. I could see the scene unfolding, as clearly as if I were standing right there next to them. I knew exactly where Brittany was, and I knew exactly how this moment was playing out. Because for the past 3 years, she had dragged me to that specific store every Tuesday to carry her bags. While she spent money she did not earn right now, Brittany was likely standing in the center of the showroom at Luxury Living Designs, surrounded by imported Italian leather sofas and crystal chandeliers. She would be wearing her oversized sunglasses indoors, holding her chin high, looking down her nose at the sales associate. She probably had a clipboard in her hand, pretending to check off items for a client, but in reality she was buying furniture for the new office expansion, an expansion they could not afford. I could imagine the sales associate, a polite young woman named Sarah, whom Brittany had made cry on at least 2 occasions, ringing up. The total Sarah would be nervous, her hands trembling slightly as she scanned the items. A velvet sectional, a marble conference table, and 4 ergonomic executive chairs. The total would be astronomical. But Brittany never looked at price tags, she only looked at brand names. "Here is the company card," Brittany would say, snapping the black platinum card onto the glass counter. "Do not take too long. I have a lunch reservation at Le Jardin in 20 minutes. Sarah would insert the chip, waiting for the machine to process. Usually this took 3 seconds, but today it would take 10, then 20. The screen would flash a message that Brittany had never seen in her life: declined. "Please contact issuer," Sarah would clear her throat, her face turning red. "I am so sorry, Mrs. Mercer." The machine says the card was declined. Brittany would laugh, a harsh, condescending sound. "Do not be ridiculous. Try it again. Your machine is obviously broken. That card has a limit of $200,000. Sarah would try again, sweating now. She would swipe it, insert it, tap it, but the result would be the same: declined. I watched the second notification pop up on my phone: transaction, declined, attempt 2, same amount. By now, the other customers in the store would be watching. Nothing attracts attention in high society. Quite like the smell of financial embarrassment. Brittany's face would be turning a shade of crimson that matched the soles of her designer shoes. She would be furiously digging through her purse for the backup card, the one linked to the business operational account. Transaction. Declined, attempt 3. This was the moment reality started to crack the glass walls of their delusion. That backup card was not just a credit card, it was a direct line to the company's CES operating capital. If that card was not working, it meant the bank had frozen the entire line of credit. I could hear Brittany screaming at Sarah, accusing her of incompetence, demanding to see the manager, throwing a tantrum like a toddler who had been told playtime was over. But deep down, fear would be gripping her throat, because she knew that card should work. She knew. Unless something catastrophic had happened, she would pull out her phone, her manicured fingers shaking as she dialed Tyler. I picked up my own phone and opened the banking app, watching the live status of their panic. Tyler was trying to access the mobile banking portal. I could see the login attempts fail one after another because I had changed the two-factor authentications to my number. 10 minutes later, my phone rang. It was the bank manager, Mr. Henderson, a man I had played golf with for 20 years. I let it ring twice before answering. Putting on my calmest voice, "Hello, Gerald. Good to hear from you, Augustus." Mr. Henderson sounded relieved. "I am so glad I caught you. I have your son Tyler on the other line, and he is in quite a state. He is demanding to know why the company credit lines have been slashed to zero and why his cards are bouncing all over town." I tried to explain the situation, but he is insisting there has been a mistake. "There is no mistake, Gerald," I said calmly, looking out at the city skyline as per my letter to you this morning. "I have exercised my right to withdraw as the personal guarantor for Mercer and Company. Designs without my assets backing the loans. The company is strictly judged on its own revenue and based on their financial statements. From last quarter, I believe they do not qualify for a platinum credit line." There was a pause on the line. "Well, yes," Mr. Henderson stammered, "without your personal guarantee and your credit score of 850 backing the account." The automated risk assessment system flagged the company as high risk. Immediately, their unsecured limit dropped from $500,000 to $5,000, which they have already exceeded. "Exactly," I said. "Tell him that, Gerald. Tell him exactly how the math works." I could hear the muffled sound of Mr. Henderson switching lines, patching Tyler into the call. "Mr. Henderson, are you there?" Tyler's voice was frantic, high-pitched, and breathless. "Brittany is stuck at the furniture store, and they are threatening to call security because she caused a scene. Fix this, now." "Mr. Mercer," Henderson said, his voice professional but cold, "I am afraid there is nothing to fix, as I was explaining. Your lines of credit were secured by your father, personal assets, and his credit rating. As of 9 a.m. this morning, your father has formally removed himself as the guarantor." "What?" Tyler shouted. "That is illegal. He cannot do that. It is my company." "It is your company," yes, Mr. Henderson agreed. "But it was his credit. The bank extended that capital, based on Augustus Mercer's reputation, not yours. Without him, your business credit score is barely 600, and your debt-to-income ratio is dangerously high. In fact, under the current terms, you are overdrawn by nearly $40,000. We will need you to deposit cash immediately to cover the deficit, or we will have to begin liquidation procedures to recover our funds." There was a silence on the line so profound, I could almost hear Tyler heartbreaking. It was the silence of a man realizing he was falling without a parachute for 30 years. Tyler thought he was flying. He thought he was a brilliant businessman. He thought he was a self-made success. He never looked down to see that I was the one holding him up the entire time. "But Dad..." Tyler's voice cracked. He was talking to me now, knowing I was listening, even though I had not spoken. "Ed, please do not do this. We have payroll next week. If the accounts are frozen, I cannot pay the staff. Dominic Russo will pull the materials. The project will stop." "Dad, are you there?" I signaled to Mr. Henderson to end the call. I did not say a word, hanging up the phone and placing it face down on the table. I poured myself another glass of scotch, the amber liquid catching the light. Brittany had said I would not survive a week, she thought. Survival was about money, about having a mansion, about expensive dinners. She did not understand that survival in the business world was about leverage. And for the first time in his life, Tyler was learning that he had zero leverage. The concept of soft power is something I tried to teach Tyler when he was a teenager. I told him that true power is not the car you drive or the watch you wear. True power is the name on the contract. True power is the handshake that clears the check. True power is having a credit score of 850 that you built over 40 years of discipline and integrity. Tyler had mocked me back then. He called me old-fashioned. He said the modern world ran on branding and image. He spent his time curating his Instagram feed. While I spent my time paying bills early, he spent his money on leased Lamborghinis, while I reinvested my dividends. Now he was standing in the wreckage of his image holding a useless piece of plastic while his wife was being escorted out of a furniture store by security guard. I opened my laptop and pulled up the security camera feed from the front of the furniture store, which was public domain, just to confirm my suspicion. Sure enough, there was Brittany standing on the curb next to her luxury SUV looking furious. She was shouting into her phone, waving her arms, her perfect facade crumbling for all the passers-by to see. But this was just the beginning. The credit cards were the first domino, the one that tips over easily and makes a loud noise. The next dominoes would be heavier, and they would fall silently, but with much more destructive force. I opened my email and drafted a message to Dominic Russo, subject updated payment terms. Body, dear Dominic, regarding the conversation we had about the supply chain for the Mercer project. As I am no longer financially involved, I recommend you secure all outstanding invoices with a lien on the property. Immediately, Tyler does not have the liquidity to cover the next shipment. Regards, Augustus. For and hit send with a single click, knowing that email would shut down their construction site within the hour. Dominic did not play games. If he thought his money was at risk, he would chain the gates and tow his equipment before lunch. I stood up and walked to the mirror, adjusting my tie. I looked at the man, reflected there. He looked older, tired, but his eyes were sharp. They were the eyes of a man who was finally taking back his life. They wanted a war. They wanted to prove they were independent. They wanted to show the world they did not need the old man. Well, they were about to get everything they wished for, and I had a feeling they were going to hate every single minute of it. I picked up my room key and headed for the door. It was time for lunch, and for the first time in years, I was going to eat exactly what I wanted, without hearing Brittany complain about the calories or the cost. Freedom, it turned out, tasted even better than revenge, but luckily for me, I was to have a full serving of both. The silence that fell over the construction site was louder than any jackhammer I had ever heard in my 40 years of business. Usually, the sound of a job site is a symphony of progress. The grinding of gears, the shouting of foremen, the rhythmic pounding of steel piles being driven into the earth. But at exactly 1:30 in the afternoon, on that Tuesday, the symphony stopped dead. I was sitting in my hotel suite monitoring the live feed from the security cameras we had installed at the Emerald Heights project. This was the flagship development that Tyler and Brittany had bet their entire reputation on. It was a $20 million luxury condominium complex that was already 3 weeks behind schedule. They needed the steel beams and the structural timber delivered today, or the entire timeline would collapse, triggering penalty clauses that would bankrupt them. I watched on the screen as a convoy of 6 massive flatbed trucks bearing the logo Russo materials rolled up to the main gate. Dust swirled around their tires as the air brakes hissed, engaging with a sound like a heavy sigh. These trucks were carrying $200,000 worth of custom-fabricated steel and high-grade lumber materials that were essential for the next phase of framing. Tyler came running out of the site trailer, adjusting his hard hat. He looked small next to the massive trucks. He was waving his arms, directing them toward the unloading zone, expecting the drivers to jump out and start unstrapping the cargo just like they always did. But the doors of the trucks did not open. The engines did not turn off. Instead, the lead driver, a man I knew well, named Big Mike, simply rolled down his window and shook his head. I could see Tyler shouting, pointing at his watch, pointing at the ground, demanding that they enter the site. He grabbed the door handle of the truck, trying to pull it open, but it was locked inside the cab. Big Mike just picked up his CB radio microphone, presumably receiving an order from headquarters. Then slowly, methodically, the lead truck put on its reverse lights. The piercing beep, beep, beep of the truck, backing up, echoed through the silent site one by one. The other 5 trucks followed suit, turning their massive wheels and beginning to execute a U-turn away from the entrance. Tyler looked like he had been slapped. He pulled out his phone, his fingers fumbling as he dialed the one man who had the power to stop this. Dominic Russo. I did not need a bug in Tyler's phone to know what was being said. Dominic had called me 10 minutes prior to warn me out of respect. I imagined the phone ringing in Tyler's ear, the panic rising in his throat, as the fleet of materials drove away, taking his future with them. Finally, Dominic picked up. "Dominic, what the hell is going on?" Tyler screamed into the phone, his voice cracking so loud that the site foreman standing 10 feet away turned to look. "Why are your trucks leaving? We have a schedule to keep. Get them back here right now, or I will sue you for breach of contract." There was a pause on the other end, a pause filled with the heavy breathing of a man who does not take threats lightly. When Dominic spoke, his voice was likely calm, low, and terrifyingly final. "Listen to me, kid," Dominic said. "I do not have a contract with you. I had a handshake agreement with Augustus Mercer." "That is the same thing," Tyler yelled. "I am the CMO now. The company is the same." "It is not the same," Dominic corrected him, his voice sharpening like a blade getting ready to cut. "For 30 years, I sent materials to that site before I saw a dime because I knew your father was good for it. If Gus shook my hand, it was better than a bank guarantee. He paid his invoices on day 30, like clockwork. Never a day late, never a dollar short. So what?" Tyler demanded. "I am good for it too. Send the trucks back. You are over your credit limit," Dominic said bluntly. "And my accounting department just flagged your company as high risk. Your father called me this morning, Tyler. He told me he is out. He told me the safety net is gone. He is just trying to manipulate you," Tyler spat, watching the last truck disappear around the corner. "Do not listen to him." "Listen to money," Dominic replied. "And right now you do not have any. Look, Tyler. I am running a business, not a charity for spoiled children. Here is the new deal since your guarantor has resigned. All net 60 payment terms are void. Effective immediately." "Void," Tyler gasped. "But we need those materials today." "Then you can have them today," Dominic said. "But the terms are cash on delivery. I want the full balance of the current order plus the outstanding balance from last month cleared right now. That is $200,000. Wire it to my account in the next 20 minutes, and I will turn the trucks around." "200,000, Tyler's voice went up an octave. "Are you crazy? I cannot access that kind of cash on an hour." Notice the bank froze the operating line. "That sounds like a personal problem," Dominic said, cold and unfeeling. "If the money is not in my account, by 2 p.m. the trucks go back to the yard, and tomorrow I am listing the materials for sale to your competitor over at Horizon Builders. They have been asking for that steel for weeks." "Dominic, please," Tyler's tone shifted from aggression to begging. "In a heartbeat, you cannot do this. It will kill the project. The investors will walk." "Then you better start digging in your couch cushions for loose change, kid," Dominic said. "Goodbye, Tyler." The line went dead. I watched on the screen as Tyler stared at his phone, his shoulders slumping. The workers who were paid by the hour were standing around, leaning on their shovels, watching their boss unravel. The foreman approached Tyler, probably asking what they should do since there were no materials to build with. Tyler waved him away, snapping something angry, and retreated into his trailer, slamming the door. But the damage was already done. In the construction world. News travels faster than light. Within minutes, every subcontractor on that site knew that Mercer Designs could not pay for materials, and when the materials stopped coming, the paychecks stopped coming soon. My phone buzzed again. It was an email notification from the legal department of the client group, the owners of the Emerald Heights project. Subject: notice of default regarding project milestones. I opened it and read the legal jargon that essentially meant Game Over Clause 4B. States that any stoppage of work lasting longer than 24 hours due to contractor negligence or inability to secure materials constitutes a material breach of contract. We demand immediate assurance of project continuity, or we will exercise our right to terminate and seek damages. Tyler thought he was just losing a shipment of wood and steel. He did not understand that he was losing the confidence of the entire market. Construction is a small world built on trust and momentum. Today, he lost the trust, and tomorrow, the momentum would crush him. I took another sip of my drink, feeling a strange mixture of satisfaction and sadness. I had built that reputation with Dominic Russo, brick by brick, over decades. had attended his daughter's weddings. I had sent flowers when his mother died. We had a bond that transcended contracts. Tyler thought he could inherit that bond, just like he inherited my house, but respect is not hereditary. It is earned, and Tyler was currently finding out that his balance was zero. I zoomed in on the camera feed one last time. I saw Tyler inside the trailer through the window. He was pacing back and forth, pulling at his hair. Brittany had arrived, her luxury SUV kicking up dust. She stormed into the trailer and I could see her arms flailing, screaming at him, asking why the trucks were gone, asking why her empire was crumbling. They were alone in that trailer, trapped in a box of their own, surrounded by a silent construction site that was quickly becoming a monument to their arrogance, and the worst part for them was that the sun was still high in the sky. It was only Tuesday. They still had 5 more days to survive without me. And the walls were already closing in. The amber liquid in my glass swirled slowly, a 30-year-old single malt scotch that cost more than the first car I ever bought. It had a rich, smoky flavor that coated my throat, warming me against the artificial chill of the hotel air conditioning. I sat in the high-back leather chair of my suite, the iPad Pro resting on my knee, glowing softly in the dim light. Most people think a business is built on money, on credit lines and handshakes with suppliers like Dominic Russo. Those are the bones, yes, but the blood, the thing that actually keeps the organism alive, is competence. For 5 years, Tyler and Brittany believed they were the heart and brain of Mercer. Designs, they believed their awards for innovation and their glossy magazine features were the result of their unique vision. They were wrong. I was the ghost in the machine. Tyler was a good salesman. I would give him that he could sell ice to an Eskimo, but he was a terrible engineer. He had the degree on his wall framed in gold, but he lacked the instinct, the obsession with detail that separates a building that stands for a century from one that cracks after the first heavy snow for 5 years. Every set of blueprints Tyler produced, every structural calculation, every load-bearing analysis went through a secret filter me. Every night after Tyler and Brittany went to sleep, usually around 11 p.m., I would go down to the home office, I would log into the central server using my admin credentials, and I would open the files Tyler had marked as final. I would spend hours correcting his math, reinforcing his support beams, adjusting the tensile strength requirements for the steel, and reallocating the weight distribution for the foundations. I never told him I never wanted to bruise his ego. I wanted him to succeed, so I quietly fixed his mistakes. I cleaned up his messes. I made him look like a genius to the city planning department and to his clients. He thought he had a magic touch. He thought he was naturally gifted. He did not know that his guardian angel was an old man in a cardigan, drinking lukewarm coffee at 3 in the morning. But last night, the guardian angel resigned. I tapped the screen of my iPad, bringing up the live status of the city planning portal. Unlike the smart home system or the bank accounts, this was public record. If you knew where to look, and I knew exactly where to look, because I had built the relationship with the Department of Buildings over 40 years, today was the day Tyler was scheduled to present the revised plans for the Emerald Heights atrium. This was the crown jewel of the project, a massive glass and steel structure that required absolute precision. In engineering, Tyler had worked on the drawings all week, confident as always. I saw the calendar alert on my synchronized cloud account, meeting with Senior Inspector Davis, 2 p.m. Inspector Davis was a man who did not care about designer suits or charm. He cared about physics, gravity, and the safety of the public. He was the toughest inspector in the state. And the only reason Tyler had passed previous inspections with Davis was because I had prepared the answers. I had bulletproofed the designs. I took a sip of scotch. Imagining Tyler walking into that office, he would be wearing his best suit, flashing his white teeth, probably making a joke about the weather. Davis would not smile. Davis would just open the large roll of blueprints and take out his red pen. The clock on my iPad read 2:45 p.m. The meeting should be over by now. Then the notification appeared. It was an automated email from the City Department of Buildings, Subject Status Update Permit Application Number 4092-B. I opened it, and the single word in the status column made me let out a long, slow breath. Rejected. I scrolled down to the comments section, usually when a plan is rejected it. Is for minor things, a missing fire exit sign or a wheelchair ramp that is too steep. These are fixable. These are annoyances. But the list of violations attached to Tyler S. submission was not a list of annoyances, it was a structural obituary. Violation 1. Catastrophic failure in load calculation. For the primary truss system, proposed steel grade, insufficient to support. Snow load. Violation. 2 foundation stress factors, miscalculated by a factor of 3 potential for subsidence imminent. Violation 3. Atrium glass curtain wall lacks sufficient wind shear, bracing for Zone 4 weather conditions. Conclusion: immediate suspension of all construction permits, pending full structural review of all active sites managed by Mercer Designs. My eyes lingered on that last sentence: suspension of all active sites. Tyler did not just lose the atrium, he lost the right to build anything, anywhere in the state, until he could prove he was not a danger to the public. I could only imagine the scene inside that government office. Tyler staring at the red ink, probably arguing, probably telling Davis that he had checked the numbers himself, that his software was state-of-the-art. He did not understand that software only works if you input the right variables, and Tyler had been inputting garbage for years, relying on me to take out the trash. My phone buzzed. It was not Tyler. This time, it was Brittany. She had left 3 voicemails in the last 10 minutes. I did not listen to them. I did not need to hear her screeching voice to know what she was saying. She would be blaming the city. She would be calling them corrupt. She would be screaming about bureaucracy. She would never once stop to think that maybe, just maybe, her husband simply did not know how to do his job. I switched apps to the internal company Slack channel, which I still had read only access to under a hidden developer profile. The panic in the company chat was palpable. The project manager, a young man named Kevin, was typing furiously. Guys, the city just posted a stop work order on the front gate of Emerald Heights. The police are here to enforce it. They are sending everyone home. What is going on? Another message popped up from the lead architect. Sarah, Tyler just called me screaming. He says the calculations for the atrium were wrong. He asked who changed them. He says the version he submitted was perfect. I smiled sadly at the screen. The version he submitted was exactly what he had drawn. That was the problem for the first time in 5 years. He had submitted his own work, raw and unfiltered, and reality had judged it harsh and wanting. A third message appeared from the accounting department. Paychecks are supposed to go out on Friday. If the site is shut down, do we still get paid? No one answered that question. I poured another measure of scotch. The bottle was going down faster than Tyler S.'s reputation. I walked to the window looking down at the traffic on 5th Avenue. The cars looked like toys from up here, moving in predictable patterns, guided by traffic lights and rules. Tyler had lived his whole life thinking he was above the rules, thinking that gravity and mathematics would bend to his will. Just because he was a Mercer, he did not understand that the name Mercer meant quality, because I stayed up all night worrying about the details, because I double-checked every bolt and every beam. He was about to learn a very expensive lesson in humility. I went back to the iPad and opened the detailed report from Inspector Davis. There was a note at the bottom that caught my eye. Note to applicant: previous submissions for this site showed a high level of engineering competence consistent with the work of Augustus Mercer. This current submission appears amateurish and dangerous. We strongly suggest Mr. Augustus Mercer review and sign off on any future amendments before resubmission. I let out a short, dry laugh. Even the city inspector knew the difference between the master and the apprentice. Tyler would be reading that note right now. He would be sitting in his car in the city hall parking lot, his tie loosened, sweat staining his collar, holding the paper that proved he was a fraud. He would be realizing that the mysterious glitches that used to vanish from his work The problems that seemed to solve themselves overnight were not magic, they were me, and I was gone. I wondered if he would call me not to scream, not to beg for money, but to ask how to fix the trust load. Calculation. I wondered if he even knew how to ask the question. But the phone remained silent. Of course, his pride was the only structural element that was still intact. It was bearing a load far heavier than it was designed for, and it was only a matter of time before it collapsed. 2. I closed the iPad cover, the screen going black. The show was over for today. The empire I had built was not being destroyed by fire or by enemies. It was being destroyed by the simple, relentless weight of incompetence. I took a sip of the scotch, savoring the burn tomorrow. The lawsuits would start. The clients who had bought condos in a building that was now legally declared unsafe would be demanding their deposits back. The insurance companies would be canceling their policies, citing negligence. And I would be here watching it all, from the comfort of the St. Regis, waiting for the moment when Tyler finally understood that the most expensive thing in the world is not a house or a car or a credit line. It is the truth, and the truth had just arrived with a red stamp that said, "Rejected." The silence in my hotel suite was broken only by the hum of the refrigerator and the rhythmic breathing of Barnaby, my golden retriever, who had been retrieved by the handler that morning. Seeing him safe at my feet gave me a sense of peace, but I knew the war was far from over. In fact, the most dangerous phase was just beginning. Most people, when backed into a corner, will surrender. They will look at the overwhelming odds and realize that the only way out is to wave the white flag. But Brittany was not most people. She was a narcissist of the highest order. And when a narcissist is cornered, they do not surrender, they attack. I was expecting a phone call, perhaps an apology delivered through gritted teeth, or maybe even a legal threat from a cheap lawyer. Instead, I got a notification on my iPad. It was from Instagram, a platform I rarely used, but monitored closely since leaving the house. The notification read, "Brittany Mercer, Designs is live." I tapped the screen, and there she was sitting in the front seat of her luxury SUV, presumably because the house was still freezing cold, and without internet, she had positioned the phone perfectly, catching the afternoon light so that a single tear glistened on her cheek. She looked devastated. She looked vulnerable. She looked like an Academy Award-winning actress. "Hi, everyone." She began, her voice trembling slightly. "I know I have not been posting much the last few days. Honestly, I have been afraid." She paused, wiping the fake tear away. "We are going through something terrible right now, and I think it is time I speak up about the abuse we have been suffering." I sat forward in my chair, my grip tightening on the iPad. "Abuse," I whispered to the empty room. "You have got to be kidding me." Brittany continued, looking directly into the camera lens, her eyes wide and pleading. "For years, Tyler and I have been taking care of his father. Augustus, we took him in when he had nowhere else to go. We gave him a suite in our home, we fed him. We included him in our family, even though he was difficult, even though his mental state was declining." She took a deep breath, letting the lie settle in the minds of her 50,000 followers. "But recently, he has become unstable, controlling. He demands money constantly, and when we try to set boundaries, he lashes out. 2 days ago, he snapped. He cut off our power. He drained our business accounts, and he disappeared, leaving us with nothing. He is trying to punish us for not giving him control over my company. He is trying to destroy us because he is jealous of our success. I am scared, guys. I am scared for myself and for Tyler. We are victims of financial and emotional abuse by a man we tried to save." The comments section began to scroll by rapidly. A river of hearts and angry emojis. "Poor Brittany. Stay strong, honey. That is toxic masculinity for you. Call the police, get a restraining order." I watched as the court of public opinion convened and convicted me in a matter of seconds. Strangers who had never met me were calling me a monster, a leech, a senile tyrant. Within 10 minutes, the hashtag #SaveBrittany was trending locally. My phone rang. It was Pendergrass. "Sir, are you watching this?" the lawyer asked, his voice tight with concern. "I am watching," I replied calmly. This is defamation, Pendergrass said. We can sue her for libel, but the damage to your reputation could be severe. If this goes viral, people believe tears, sir. Especially pretty ones. We need to issue a statement. Immediately denying these allegations. No, I said, cutting him off. No statements. Pendergrass statements sound like excuses. Defenses sound like guilt. We do not need to say a word. Then what do we do? Pendergrass asked. She is destroying you. I took a sip of water, watching Brittany continue her performance on the screen. She was now sobbing, claiming that I had threatened to hurt her dog, claiming that she was afraid to sleep at night. Pendergrass, I said, do you remember when I installed the mesh Wi-Fi system in the house 3 years ago? Yes, sir. And do you remember that I installed high-definition security cameras in the common areas, the kitchen, the living room, and the dining room, specifically, to monitor the house when they went on vacation? Yes. But what does that have to do with this? I smiled a cold, humorless smile. Brittany forgets that the cameras record audio too, she thinks. Because she cannot see them, they do not exist. Initiate protocol, truth, upload the compilation video to the same platform, tag her in it, and boost it with the marketing budget we reserved. Are you sure, sir? Pendergrass hesitated once. This is out. There is no going back. This is nuclear. She pushed the button. Pendergrass, I said, watching Brittany wipe her dry eyes on screen. I am just detonating the charge. Do it. I hung up and waited. On the screen, Brittany was wrapping up her monologue, asking her followers to donate to a GoFundMe link she had just set up to help them survive this crisis. She was shameless, utterly shameless. Then it happened. A new notification popped up on the screen, a video uploaded by an anonymous account simply titled, The Real Brittany Mercer. I clicked on it. The video opened with a timestamp from 3 weeks ago. The scene was the kitchen. Brittany was standing over me while I was fixing the dishwasher. You are so useless, Gus, she was screaming. Her face twisted in a way that looked nothing like the sad victim on the live stream. Why can you not just hire a repairman? Oh, right, because you are too cheap spending your pension on dog food instead of contributing to this household. The video cut to another clip from 2 months ago. Brittany was holding a glass of wine, laughing with a friend. Oh God, no, Brittany was saying. In the clip, we do not actually pay for the house. Gus pays the mortgage, but do not tell anyone. It ruins the brand image. We just let him live in the guest room like a glorified janitor. As long as he keeps writing the checks, I will let him stay, but the moment the money stops, he is out on the street. The video cut to the dinner party from Chapter 1. The audio was crystal clear. Excuse me, did the charity case just speak up? You are lucky we even include you in this life, Gus. Look at you. You have nothing. No money. No property. No legacy except for what Tyler gives you. The compilation ended with a clip from the morning after I left. Brittany was screaming at Tyler in the kitchen. I do not care about your dad, Tyler. I only care about his credit score. Fix it. Lie. 2. Him steal his identity. I do not care. Just get the money back. The video ended with a black screen and a single line of text. Truth is not a victim. I switched back to Brittany's live stream. She was still talking, unaware that her digital execution had just taken place, but her viewers knew. The comments section, which had been full of hearts and support, suddenly stopped. Then it exploded in a different direction. Liar. We just saw the video. You called him a janitor. You admitted you are using him for money. MG, she is the abuser. Brittany frowned, leaning closer to the phone, reading the comments. Confusion washed over her face. What? What are you guys talking about? What video? Someone posted a link in the comments. Brittany tapped it on her screen, and for a moment her live stream paused as she watched her own cruelty played back to her. When the video feed returned, Brittany's face was pale. All the color had drained away, leaving her looking like a ghost. The fake tears were gone, replaced by genuine, Terror, she looked at the camera, realizing that 50,000 people had just seen the real her. "No," she stammered. "No, that is edited. That is out of context. He is manipulating you. Do not believe it." But it was too late. The viewer count was dropping rapidly, or worse, people were staying just to insult her. Gold digger, Karen, justice for Gus. Then the brand notifications started rolling in. I could see them popping up on the top of her screen, because she was screen sharing part of her feed. Sponsor partnership terminated. Collab cancelled. "We are reviewing our association with your brand." Brittany screamed a raw, primal sound of frustration and swiped her hand across the phone, knocking it off the dashboard. The stream went black. Ending abruptly, I sat back in my chair, feeling a heavy weight lift off my chest. It was not joy, it was relief. The truth was out. The narrative she tried to spin had strangled her. My phone buzzed again. It was Pendergrass. "It is trending, sir," the lawyer said, sounding awed. "The video has 1 million views. In 10 minutes, the public sentiment has flipped 100%. People are finding your old business profile. They are realizing who you really are. They are calling you a hero." "I am not a hero, Pendergrass," I said quietly, looking at Barnaby sleeping peacefully. "I am just a father who had to discipline a very unruly child. Is there anything else, sir?" I said, watching the sun set over the city. "Send the eviction notice now." While she is still in shock, she said, "I would not last a week without them." But it turns out her reputation did not last an hour. Without my silence, I closed the iPad. The screen fading to black, Brittany wanted to be famous. She wanted the world to know her name. Well, now they did. And I had a feeling she was going to wish for anonymity more than anything else in the world. The phone rang again. This time it was Tyler. I let it ring, listening to the melody until it went to voicemail. I was not ready to talk, not yet. The lesson was not finished. Brittany had been broken, but Tyler, he still had to learn that standing by and watching evil happen is just as bad as committing it himself. I stood up and grabbed Barnaby leash. "Come on, boy," I said. "Let us go for a walk in the park. The air is fresh tonight, and for the first time in a long time, I do not have to watch my back." As we walked out of the hotel lobby, the doorman tipped his hat. "Good evening. Mr. Mercer, you look like a man who just won the lottery." "Better," I replied. "I just won my dignity back," but as I walked into the cool New York night, I knew the final blow was yet to land. Losing their reputation was painful. Losing their home would be devastating. But what I had planned for tomorrow, the loss of their future, that was the strike that would ensure they never hurt anyone ever again. The collateral damage of war is always the innocence, and that was the one thought that kept me awake the previous night, staring at the ceiling of my hotel room while the city of New York slept. Beneath me, I had made peace with destroying Tyler S. business. I had felt a grim satisfaction in watching Brittany S. reputation incinerate online. But today was different. Today involved Leo, my 8-year-old grandson, and the only person in that house who looked at me with love instead of contempt. Leo attended St. Jude Academy, a prep school in Connecticut that cost more per year than most people earn in a lifetime, $50,000 annually for tuition. Uniforms, fencing lessons, and the prestige of saying, "Your child goes to school with the sons of senators and CEOs." For years, Tyler and Brittany bragged about this school. They wore the Parent Association bumper stickers on their cars like medals of honor. But they never paid a dime of the tuition. That money came from the Catherine Mercer Trust, a fund my late wife had set up specifically for her grandchildren. Education. Catherine was a woman of foresight. She knew Tyler was reckless with money, so she locked the capital away, ensuring that no matter how many bad investments Tyler made, Leo would always have a future. But Catherine was also a woman of deep moral conviction, and she had included a clause in the trust document, a clause that Tyler had never bothered to read because he was too busy cashing the checks. At 10 in the morning, my phone did not ring. Instead, I received a text message from Headmaster Blackwood, a man I had known for decades, asking me to call him immediately. I took a deep breath and dialed, knowing exactly what was happening. Augustus, the headmaster. His voice was grave. I am afraid we have a situation regarding Leo S. enrollment. The automatic transfer for the spring semester was rejected this morning by the trust administrator. I know, Charles, I said quietly. I authorized the rejection. There was a silence on the line. Augustus, you know our policy, no pay, no play. If the tuition is not settled by noon, we are required to suspend the student until funds are secured. I have tried calling Tyler, but he is not picking up. He will pick up for you, I said. Call his office line. Tell him he needs to come to the school immediately. Do not tell him why, just say it is urgent. I hung up and switched my view to the GPS tracker on Tyler's car, watching as the dot moved frantically from the construction site where he was likely trying to salvage scrap metal toward the school. I poured myself a glass of water, my hand trembling slightly, not from age but from the pain of what I was doing. I had to hurt Leo today to save him tomorrow. If he stayed in that house watching his parents value money over family, he would grow up to become just like them. I had to break the cycle even if the shrapnel cut us all. The scene at St. Jude Academy played out exactly as I had scripted it with Pendergrass. Earlier that morning, Tyler arrived, his suit rumpled from sleeping in his office. His eyes bloodshot from stress, he ran into the administrative building, expecting a medical emergency or a behavioral issue. He was ushered into Headmaster Blackwood's office, a room smelling of old leather and mahogany. The headmaster sat behind his desk, looking at Tyler with that specific look of pity reserved for the formerly wealthy. Is Leo okay? Tyler asked, breathless. Did he get hurt? Leo is fine, Mr. Mercer, the headmaster said, gesturing to a chair. He is in history class right now. The problem is administrative. As you know, the tuition payment was due today. Unfortunately, the transaction failed. Tyler let out a laugh of disbelief, a laugh that bordered on hysteria. Is that why you called me down here, honestly? Charles, there must be a glitch with the bank. My father handles the trust. Just run it again tomorrow. I am afraid it is not a banking glitch. The headmaster slid a legal document across the desk. This is a formal notice from the executor of the Catherine Mercer Trust, specifically citing Section 14, Paragraph B. Tyler picked up the paper, his hands shaking. Section 14. What is that? It is the morality and filial piety clause, the headmaster explained gently. Your mother, Catherine, stipulated that the funds for her grandchildren were conditional. The parents of the beneficiaries must demonstrate a continued standard of moral character, and specifically, they must provide care and respect for the patriarch of the family, Augustus Mercer. Tyler went pale, his eyes scanning the legal jargon, getting stuck on the words failure to provide shelter and gross mistreatment of the benefactor. The trustee, Mr. Pendergrass, has invoked this clause based on recent events. The headmaster continued. He has provided evidence that Augustus Mercer has been evicted from the family home and left without support under the terms of the will. This constitutes a breach of contract. The trust is frozen until the executor deems that the moral standard has been restored. Tyler dropped the paper. It fluttered to the desk like a white flag of surrender. Mom did that, he whispered. Mom did this to me. She did it to protect the family values. Tyler, the headmaster said, looking over his glasses, and frankly knowing your father, I imagine he did not take this step lightly. You have until noon to pay the $50,000 from your own pocket, or you will need to take Leo home. Tyler stood up, reaching for his wallet, then remembering that his credit cards were useless, remembering that his bank accounts were frozen, remembering that he did not even have $50 in cash, let alone $50,000. I cannot pay, Tyler, admitted his voice barely a whisper. Not today, then I am sorry. The headmaster stood up. I will have Leo brought to the office. Please collect his things from his locker. 10 minutes later, Tyler walked out of the school, holding Leo's hand. Leo was wearing his blazer and holding his small backpack, looking confused and scared, Dad. Why are we leaving early? Leo asked, looking up at Tyler. Is Grandpa okay? Is he sick? Tyler stopped on the stone steps of the school, the weight of his son's question crushing him. He could have lied, he could have said Grandpa was sick, he could have blamed me, but looking into Leo, Tyler could not find the words. Grandpa is fine, Leo, Tyler said, choking back tears. We have to go home. The drive back to the freezing cold mansion was silent. Tyler parked the car in the driveway, which was now cluttered with leaves because the landscaping crew had quit yesterday. He walked Leo inside where Brittany was sitting on the floor of the living room, wrapped in 3 blankets, scrolling through the hate comments on her phone. She looked up expecting Tyler to have fixed everything, expecting him to have brought money or a solution. Instead, she saw Leo standing there home in the middle of a school day. What is he doing here? Brittany snapped, standing up, her blanket falling to the floor. Why is he not in school? They kicked him out, Tyler said, his voice hollow, staring at the wall. What? Brittany shrieked. Kicked him out. Do they know who we are? We are Mercers. We founded the scholarship program. Not anymore. Tyler walked into the kitchen and poured himself a glass of tap water, his hands shaking so hard the water splashed onto the counter. Mom's trust fund paid the tuition. Brittany and Mom S. will has a clause. If we mistreat Dad, the money stops. Brittany stood there, her mouth open, trying to process the level of betrayal she felt. She did not think about Leo missing his education. She did not think about the humiliation. She thought about the status. She thought about the upcoming parent-teacher gala she would miss. He cut off the school. She whispered, the realization turning into a scream. He cut off Leo. He is following Mom's will, Tyler said, smashing the glass into the sink, the sound of breaking glass echoing through the empty house. We did this. Brittany, we kicked him out and now Mom is kicking us out from the grave. Brittany's face turned a shade of purple I had never seen before. She grabbed a vase from the table and hurled it against the wall, shattering it into a million pieces. He is killing us, she screamed, tearing at her hair. He is actually killing us. He wants us to die. Tyler, do something. Go to his hotel, break down the door, force him to sign the checks. I do not care if you have to beat him up, just fix this. Tyler looked at his wife, seeing her truly. For the first time, he saw the madness in her eyes. The absolute lack of empathy. He saw a woman who would burn the world down to keep her image intact. I cannot force him, Tyler said quietly. He has security, he has lawyers, and honestly, Brittany, he has the moral high ground. Moral high ground. Brittany laughed, a manic, terrifying sound. Screw his morals. He is an old man. He belongs in a home, not in a penthouse controlling our lives. I hate him. I hate your mother and I hate you for being so weak. Leo, who had been standing in the hallway, dropped his backpacks. The sound made them both jump. Leo looked at his mother, his eyes wide with fear, and then he turned and ran up the stairs, sobbing. Tyler looked at the stairs, then back at Brittany, and for the first time the anger in his eyes was not directed at me, it was directed at her. You just scared him, Tyler said, stepping toward her. Good. Brittany spat. Maybe he will learn that life is not fair. Maybe he will learn that his grandfather is a monster. I watched all of this from the hidden camera in the living room, feeling a single tear roll down my cheek. It broke my heart to see Leo run away crying. But I knew that pain was temporary. The lesson he was learning about the true nature of his parents would save him years of therapy. In the future, I picked up my phone and sent a text to Pendergrass Draft, a petition for temporary custody of Leo. I typed based on the unstable home environment and lack of financial support. I want to file it the moment they are evicted. Pendergrass replied instantly, already drafted, sir, waiting for your command. I put the phone down. Brittany was right about one thing. I was killing them. I was killing their ego. I was killing their greed, and I was killing the false life they had built. But I was doing it to save the only thing that mattered, the future of the Mercer bloodline, which was currently crying in his bedroom upstairs. You have lost everything, I whispered to the screen. You just do not know it yet. But tomorrow, You lose the roof over your heads, and then the game is truly over. The sixth night arrived with a heaviness that felt like a physical weight pressing down on the city, while I sat in my warm hotel suite watching the rain streak against the glass. The atmosphere inside the Mercer mansion was suffocatingly different. For 5 days, Tyler and Brittany had lived in denial. They had camped out in the living room bundled in coats, convincing themselves that this was just a temporary glitch, a power play that would end when I came to my senses. But as the sun set on the 6th day, the finality of their situation arrived, not with a whimper, but with the flashing lights of a sheriff patrol car I had instructed, Pendergrass, to execute the foreclosure clause. Immediately, normally. These things take months, years even. But when the property is owned by a private trust, and the occupants have no lease agreement, the law is brutally efficient. Technically, Tyler and Brittany were guests who had overstayed their welcome, and guests who were now trespassing on private property. I watched the security feed as the sheriff deputy walked up the long driveway, his boots crunching on the wet gravel. He did not knock. Politely. He pounded on the heavy oak door, a sound that echoed through the empty house like a gavel striking a block inside. I saw Brittany jump. Her eyes wide with terror, she grabbed Tyler's arm, her fingernails digging into his coat. "Do not answer it," she hissed. "It is probably just another process server." "It is the police," Brittany, Tyler whispered, his voice shaking, looking out the peephole. "We have to open it." When Tyler opened the door, the cold wind rushed in, extinguishing the single candle they had, lit for light. The deputy stood there holding a clipboard, his face impassive. "Tyler Mercer?" the deputy asked. "Yes," Tyler replied, his breath visible in the freezing air. "I am here to serve you with an immediate eviction notice issued by the Mercer property. Trust you have been declared squatters on the premises, seeing as the lawful owner has revoked your permission to reside here." The deputy handed Tyler the paper. "You have 2 hours to vacate the property, sir, or I will be forced to remove you for trespassing. 2 hours. Brittany screamed, running to the door. "You cannot do this. We have nowhere to go. This is our house. We have lived here for 5 years. The deputy looked at her calmly, according to the deed, Ma. This house belongs to Augustus Mercer. Do you have a lease? Do you have a title deed?" Brittany stammered, her face flushing red in the darkness. "No. But we are family." "Family or not," the deputy said, touching the brim of his hat, "the owner wants you out. You can take personal essentials only. Anything structurally attached to the house or belonging to the trust stays behind. I will wait in my vehicle. You have 120 minutes. The door closed, and for a moment there was absolute silence. Then the panic set in. It was a frantic, animalistic panic. They did not pack logical things like food or warm blankets. Brittany ran to her closet, sweeping armfuls of designer dresses into trash bags, screaming about her Chanel and her Prada. She was trying to save the costumes of the character she played, not the tools she needed to survive. Tyler ran to his office, trying to grab his computer tower, but then he stopped. Remembering that, without electricity and without a business, the computer was just a useless box of metal. Instead, he grabbed a framed photo from his desk. It was a picture of the three of us, me, Catherine, and him, taken at his college graduation. It was the only thing of sentimental value he took. I watched them scrambling in the dark, tripping over furniture, cursing each other. It was a scene of total degradation. The power couple of Connecticut, the king and queen of the social scene, were reduced to refugees in their own home, stuffing their lives into black plastic garbage bags by the light of a dying flashlight. When the 2 hours were up, the deputy honked his horn, a sharp blast that signaled the end of an era. They walked out into the rain, dragging their bags behind them. The humiliation was absolute. Brittany was wearing high heels that sank into the mud, ruining them instantly. Tyler looked like a ghost, his shoulders slumped, his eyes hollow. They did not look back at the house. They could not bear to look at the paradise they had lost. They loaded the bags into the SUV, the only vehicle they had left, and even that was running on fumes. They climbed in, and as they drove away, the deputy placed a heavy padlock on the front gate, sealing the Mercer estate. I switched camera feeds following the GPS tracker on the SUV. I wanted to see where they would go. Would they go to a friend house? Surely after years of throwing lavish parties, they had friends who would take them in, but as I watched the dot on the map move, I realized the truth of their social standing. They drove to the Brentwood estate, to the home of the Washingtons, a couple they had vacationed with last summer. The car idled outside the gate for 10 minutes. I could imagine Tyler calling, begging for a spare room, but the gate never opened. Eventually, the car pulled away. They tried the Harrisons next, then the Goldbergs, same result. The car would stop, wait, and drive away. It turns out that when you are a toxic liability, when you have been exposed as frauds and abusers, the fair-weather friends vanish like mist in the morning sun. No one wanted to be associated with the falling empire of Tyler and Brittany. The gaslight on the dashboard must have been screaming by now because the car turned away from the affluent neighborhoods. It drove past the country club, past the high-end boutiques, and onto the interstate heading south toward the industrial district. They pulled into the parking lot of the Starlight Inn, a roadside motel, with a flickering neon sign, where the letter L was burnt out, making it read Starlight Inn. It was the kind of place where truckers slept for a few hours, and where people went when they had nowhere left to go. I switched to the audio feed inside the car, just in time to hear Brittany melt down. "No," she sobbed, refusing to open the car door. "No, Tyler. I am not staying here. Look at this place. It is disgusting. There are probably bedbugs. I will get a disease. I am Brittany Mercer. I do not sleep in dumpsters." "We have $40, Brittany," Tyler said, his voice devoid of emotion. "Just $40, cash. This place is $35 a night. It is all we can afford. Unless you want to sleep in the car." "I hate you," Brittany screamed, hitting the dashboard with her fists. "I hate your father, and I hate you for letting this happen. You were supposed to be a CEO. You were supposed to take care of me. I tried." Tyler shouted back, finally snapping. "I tried to give you everything you wanted, Brittany. I bought you the cars, the clothes, the vacations. I let you treat my father like a dog because I thought it would make you happy. But it was never enough, was it? Nothing is ever enough for you." He got out of the car, slamming the door, and walked into the lobby, leaving her crying in the passenger seat. I watched Tyler through the cracked window of the motel lobby. He was counting out crumpled bills onto the counter. The clerk, a man with a grease-stained shirt, looked at him with suspicion. Tyler Mercer, the man who used to drop $1,000 on a bottle of wine, was now negotiating for a room with a working lock. He came back out holding a physical key attached to a dirty plastic tag. "Get out." "Brittany," he said, opening her door. "Room 104. Let us go." They dragged their trash bags into the room. The fluorescent light inside flickered, buzzing like a trapped fly. The room was small, smelling of stale smoke and old carpet. The bedspread was a faded floral pattern that had seen better decades. Tyler dropped the bags on the floor and sat on the edge of the bed, putting his head in his hands. Brittany stood by the door, refusing to touch anything. She looked at her phone, hoping for a distraction, but the screen was dark, the battery had died, and they had forgotten to pack a charger. "This is rock bottom," she whispered, staring at the peeling paint on the wall. "No," Tyler said, looking up, his eyes red-rimmed. "This is not rock bottom. Rock bottom is when you realize you deserve to be here." "What is that supposed to mean?" Brittany snapped. "It means Dad was right," Tyler said softly. "We would not last a week tonight. Is night 6. And look at us, we are broken. We have no friends, no money, no home, and the worst part is, we did it to ourselves." "Stop talking like that," Brittany hissed. "He did this. He ruined us." Did he? Tyler stood up, walking to the dirty window, looking out at the rain. Or did he just stop stopping us from ruining ourselves? Think about it, Brittany. Every time we messed up, he was there with a check. Every time we overspent, he covered it. We never learned how to survive. We just learned how to consume. I am going to sleep, Brittany said, lying down on top of the covers fully clothed, pulling her coat tight around her. Wake me up when this nightmare is over. It is not a nightmare, Brittany, Tyler said, lying down next to her, staring at the water stain on the ceiling. It is reality, and tomorrow is the last day. Tomorrow, the week is up. I sat in my hotel suite miles away, feeling a profound sense of sadness, watching my son. In that dingy room broke my heart. But I knew I could not intervene, not yet. Pain is the greatest teacher. And Tyler was finally sitting in the classroom. I closed the laptop, the image of them huddled together in the cold motel room, fading from view. They had lost the empire, they had lost the image, but maybe, just maybe, in the wreckage of their vanity they might find something real. Tomorrow would be the final test. Tomorrow. They would either rise from the ashes as new people or they would burn out completely. And I would be there waiting at the finish line to see which version of my son survived the fire. The morning sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the penthouse boardroom at the St. Regis, casting long golden shadows across the polished mahogany table. The air inside smelled of freshly brewed Arabica coffee and expensive leather. A stark contrast to the stale cigarette smoke and desperation that I knew Tyler and Brittany had woken up to in their roadside motel room. I sat at the head of the table surrounded by 6 of the most powerful men in the logistics and construction industry. To my right was Arthur Sterling, the CEO of Sterling Global. To my left was the chairman of the National Builders Association. These were men who moved markets with a phone call, men who valued discretion and power above all else, and today they were all looking at me, waiting for my final signature on a merger document that would reshape the entire Northeast corridor. The meeting was proceeding with the quiet, dignified rhythm of high-stakes business until a commotion erupted in the hallway outside. It started as a muffled argument, the sound of the receptionist politely refusing entry, followed by the heavy thud of security guards moving into position. But then I heard Brittany's voice, shrill and hysterical, cutting through the heavy oak doors like a serrated knife. "Do not touch me," she was screaming. "I am his daughter-in-law. I own this family. You cannot keep me out." Then came the sound of a scuffle, and the doors burst open. Tyler and Brittany stumbled into the room looking like refugees from a disaster zone, which in a way they were. Tyler's suit, the same one he had worn for 3 days, was wrinkled and stained with sweat. His eyes were wild, darting around the room with the frantic energy of a trapped animal. Brittany looked even worse. Her designer dress was torn at the hem, her hair was matted, and her makeup was smeared, giving her the appearance of a melted doll. 2 security guards lunged forward, grabbing Tyler by the arms, ready to drag him out, but I raised my hand. "Let them in," I said calmly, my voice echoing slightly in the large room. "Let them stay." The guards hesitated, but obeyed. Stepping back to the wall, Tyler and Brittany stood panting in the center of the plush carpet, looking disoriented by the sudden transition from their chaotic reality to this sanctuary of wealth and order. Brittany was the first to recover her aggression, her narcissism acting as a shield against her shame. She pointed a shaking finger at me, ignoring the 6 billionaires sitting in silence around the table. "There you are," she shrieked, her voice cracking. "Evil old man, we have been looking for you all morning. Do you have any idea what we slept on last night? Do you have any idea how humiliating this is?" I did not answer. I simply took a sip of my sparkling water, watching her unravel. "Give us the money back," Brittany demanded, stepping closer to the table until she saw the cold stares of the other men. "Give us access to the accounts. Right now, Tyler, tell him. He cannot treat us like this." Tyler stepped forward, but his arrogance was gone, replaced by a confusing mixture of anger and awe. He was looking around the room, recognizing the faces of the men at the table. He looked at Arthur Sterling, a man he had tried to meet for 5 years, but could never get an appointment with. He looked at the chairman of the Builders Association, a man whose magazine cover was currently framed in Tyler's empty office. "Dad," Tyler whispered, his voice trembling. "What is going on? Why are you here with these people?" Arthur Sterling leaned forward, his voice gravelly and authoritative. "We are in the middle of a board meeting, Mr. Mercer. If you could show some respect for the chair." The chair, Tyler repeated, blinking stupidly. Yes, Arthur continued, gesturing to me. We are waiting for the honorary chairman and senior advisor, Augustus Mercer, to give his final approval on the acquisition strategy. Without his sign-off, nothing moves. Tyler looked at me as if he was seeing a stranger for 30 years. He thought I was just a retired logistics manager who got lucky with a few stocks. He thought I was a gardener who paid the bills. He had no idea that I had retained my position on the board of the holding company that owned half the supply chain his small company relied on. You. Tyler stammered, "You are the chairman." Brittany did not care about titles. She only cared about her discomfort. She slammed her hand onto the mahogany table, leaving a greasy palm print on the pristine surface. "I do not care who he is," she yelled. "He is a thief. He stole our house, he stole our money, and he kidnapped our son. Look at him sitting there like a king, while we rot in a motel room. Fix it. Gus, fix it right now, or I swear to God I will." She stopped, because I had stood up. The sound of my chair sliding back was the only noise in the room. I stood to my full height, buttoning my jacket, slowly adjusting my cuffs. I looked at the men around the table, apologizing with a slight nod for the interruption. Then I turned my full attention to the two intruders standing on the carpet. I looked at the Patek Philippe watch on my wrist, checking the time with deliberate slowness. "Brittany," I said, my voice low but projecting perfectly in the acoustic silence of the room. "Do you remember what you said to me in the kitchen exactly 7 days ago?" Brittany blinked, taken aback by the question. "I do not know what you are talking about," she muttered. "You stood there holding a glass of Chardonnay," I reminded her, walking slowly around the table toward them. "And you told me that without your charity, without your roof over my head, I would not survive a week in the real world." I stopped directly in front of them, smelling the stale odor of the motel on their clothes, seeing the dirt under Tyler. I checked my watch again. Well, it has been exactly 1 week, 168 hours to the minute. I looked at Tyler, his face pale and gaunt. "I am still here," I said, spreading my arms to encompass the luxury of the penthouse. "I am well fed, I am well rested, and I am surrounded by people who respect me." Then I looked at Brittany, her eyes darting nervously, refusing to meet my gaze. "And you," I continued, my voice dropping to a whisper, "look at you. You have aged 10 years. In 7 days. You are homeless. You are penniless. And you are standing in a room full of people who would not trust you to park their cars. You did this," Brittany hissed, tears of rage welling up in her eyes. "You destroyed us." I corrected her coldly. "I simply stepped aside. I stopped holding up the sky for you, and gravity did the rest. You said I would not last a week without you. But the truth has been revealed. You were the parasites and I was the host." Tyler looked down at his shoes, the reality finally sinking in the weight of his failure, crushing him. "Please," he whispered. "Not here, not in front of them. We can talk about this in private. Just help us get a room, a real room, please." I looked at my son, and for a moment I felt a flicker of pity. But then I remembered Leo crying on the stairs. I remembered the way Tyler had watched silently while Brittany humiliated me for years. Mercy now would only enable them again. "The experiment is over," I said, turning my back on them, walking back to the head of the table. "You are still alive so physically, you have survived the week, but the Mercer Empire, the reputation, the brand, the lifestyle you worshipped, that is dead. It died the moment you thought you were better than the man who built it." I sat down and looked at the security guards. "Get them out! No!" Brittany screamed, lunging forward. But the guards were faster. They grabbed her by the arms, hauling her backward, her heels dragging on the carpet, screaming obscenities that echoed off the glass walls. Tyler did not fight. He let the guard take his arm, walking out with his head bowed, defeated, as the doors closed, cutting off Brittany as screams. Silence returned to the boardroom. Arthur Sterling looked at me, raising an eyebrow. "Rough morning, Augustus." "Just taking out the trash, Arthur," I said, picking up my pen. "Just taking out the trash, now." Where were we regarding the sale of the trademark? We went back to business, as if nothing had happened. But the air in the room felt lighter, clearer. The final tie had been severed, and for the first time in years, I felt completely and utterly free. They had come looking for a savior, but they had found only a mirror reflecting their own ruin back at them. And that I knew was the harshest punishment of all. Wait. Before you go, I said, my voice cutting through the heavy atmosphere of the boardroom. Just one more thing. The security guards paused, their hands still gripping Tyler and Brittany's arms. Tyler looked back at me, hope flickering in his eyes for a brief second. Perhaps he thought this was the moment of mercy, perhaps. He thought I was going to hand him a check or the keys to the house, but hope is a dangerous thing when it is based on delusion. I gestured to the empty chairs opposite me. Sit down, I commanded, not for a negotiation, but for a lesson. They sat wary and broken. Brittany was wiping her mascara-stained cheeks, trying to regain some composure, adjusting her torn dress. Tyler just stared at the mahogany table, unable to look me in the eye. You asked me why Arthur Sterling is here, I said, gesturing to the silver-haired man on my right. You asked why the CEO of our biggest competitor is sitting at this table while you are being escorted out. Tyler looked at Arthur, then back at me. I assumed he was buying the logistics division. Tyler mumbled, his voice hoarse. I let out a dry laugh. You assumed too much, Tyler. You always have. You assumed the house was yours. You assumed the money was endless. And you assumed that the company name, Mercer and Company, Designs, belonged to you. Tyler frowned, confusion knitting his brow. Of course it belongs to me. I am the CEO. I incorporated the LLC 5 years ago. You incorporated an operating company. I corrected him, leaning forward, clasping my hands. You built a shell, Tyler. But do you know who owns the soul of the shell? Do you know who owns the intellectual property, the trademark, the logo, and the client list? Tyler remained silent, the gears in his head turning slowly, grinding against the rust of his ignorance. 30 years ago, I continued, my voice steady, when I started this business. I did not just build a construction firm. I created a holding company called Mercer Intellectual Holdings. This holding company owns the rights to the name Mercer in all commercial applications regarding construction and design in the United States. When you started your little venture, I granted you a revocable royalty-free license to use the name because you were my son. I saw the color drain from Tyler's face as the legal reality hit him like a sledgehammer. A revocable license, I repeated, tasting the words. And this morning at 8:45 a.m. Just before you burst into this room, I revoked it. Brittany let out a gasp. Wait, she stammered. What does that mean? Arthur Sterling cleared his throat, sliding a document across the table toward them. The sound of the paper sliding on the wood was sharp and final. It means Mrs. Mercer. Arthur said, his voice smooth as silk but hard as steel, that as of 9 a.m. this morning, my company, Sterling Global, has purchased 100% of the assets of Mercer Intellectual Holdings. That includes the trademark, the brand name, and the exclusive rights to the entire client database accumulated over 3 decades. Tyler picked up the document, his hands shaking so violently the paper rattled. It was a bill of sale, a transfer of ownership that erased his identity with a single signature. You sold the name, Tyler whispered, looking at me with horror. You sold our name to him. I sold my asset, I corrected him. An asset that was being devalued every day by your incompetence and your wife's arrogance. Arthur leaned forward, clasping his hands on the table. Let me make this very clear, Tyler, starting immediately. You are legally prohibited from using the name Mercer for any business purpose. You cannot call yourself Mercer Designs. You cannot use the logo on your trucks. You cannot even use your own surname to market your services. If you try, I will sue you for trademark infringement, and I have a legal team that makes your father's lawyer look like a public defender. Brittany stood up, her face twisting into a mask of pure fury. You cannot do that. It is our name. It is on my driver's license. It is a brand, Brittany, Arthur said coldly. and you have damaged that brand enough. I am rebranding the entire operation under the Sterling banner. Effective tomorrow, the name Mercer will no longer exist in this industry, except as a subsidiary of my corporation." "But the clients," Tyler interrupted, desperation creeping into his voice. "The VIP list. The contacts. I have relationships with those people, you have nothing," I said, cutting him off strictly. "Those clients signed contracts with the Mercer entity, and the Mercer entity now belongs to Arthur. I sent an email blast to the entire database 10 minutes ago, informing them of the acquisition and assuring them that under Sterling management, the quality control issues and the drama that have plagued the company recently will be resolved." "You stole my Rolodex, Tyler," whispered, tears streaming down his face. "I took back what I lent you," I said. And honestly, Tyler, most of them were relieved. "Dominic Russo was the first to sign the new supplier agreement with Arthur," he said. "He is happy to work with adults again." The room fell silent, a heavy tomb-like silence that marked the death of Tyler's career. He sat there realizing that he was not just broke, he was erased. He could not go out and start a new company called Mercer Builders. He could not trade on his father's reputation, because his father's reputation was now the property of his biggest rival. He was a man without a name, without a home, and without a future. Brittany looked at the document, then at me. Her eyes filled with a hatred so pure it was almost impressive. "You planned this," she hissed. "You planned this from the very beginning. You wanted to humiliate us. I wanted to teach you," I said, standing up, walking over to the window, looking out at the city skyline. "You thought the value of the company was in the fancy office and the Instagram followers. You never understood that the value was in the trust, the name represented. You spent 5 years withdrawing from an account you never deposited into, and today the account was closed." I turned back to face them, my silhouette framed by the bright light of the city. "You are banned from the industry, Tyler," I said, delivering the final blow. "There is a non-compete clause attached to the client list transfer. You cannot work in construction or design within a 500-mile radius for the next 5 years. 5 years, Tyler choked out. "What am I supposed to do?" I shrugged, looking at his soft hands. Hands that had never held a shovel. Hands that had only ever held a wine glass or a pen to sign checks. "I put money in work," I suggested. "Simply get a job, Tyler. Start at the bottom, learn what it actually means to build something, instead of just taking credit for it. Maybe in 5 years, when the non-compete expires, you will have learned enough humility to be worth hiring." Arthur Sterling stood up, signaling that the meeting was over. "Gentlemen," he said to the board, "thank you for your time, Tyler. Brittany, please leave my building before I have you arrested for corporate espionage." The security guard stepped forward again, and this time there was no resistance. Tyler stood up, his legs unsteady. He looked at the bill of sale one last time, looking at my signature at the bottom. The signature that had given him everything and had now taken it all away. He looked at me, and for the first time in his life I saw a flicker of genuine fear in his eyes. He was realizing that the safety net was gone, and the ground was very, very hard. "Dad," he whispered, one word, a plea, a question, a goodbye. "Goodbye, Tyler," I said, turning my back on him, returning to my seat. They were escorted out the heavy doors, closing with a soft click, sealing them out of the world of power and influence they so desperately craved. I sat alone at the head of the table for a moment. The other board members respecting my silence, I picked up the pen, the expensive fountain pen I had used to sign the deal, and twisted it in my fingers. It was done. The empire I had built to leave to my son was now sold to a stranger. But in doing so, I had saved the legacy from being turned into a joke. I had preserved the dignity of the work, even if I had to sacrifice the successor. Arthur poured me a fresh cup of coffee. "Well, Augustus," he said, his tone respectful, "that was the coldest piece of business I have ever witnessed. Are you all right?" I took the coffee, feeling the warmth seep into my cold fingers. "I am fine, Arthur," I replied. "Actually, I am better than fine. I just liquidated a distressed asset and freed up my schedule for the first time in 30 years. And the boy, Arthur asked, "What happens to him now?" I took a sip of the dark roast, savoring the bitterness. "Now," I said, looking at the closed doors. "Now he learns to swim because I am done being the life raft." The meeting adjourned, and I walked out of the St. Regis into the bright sunlight of Manhattan. The city moved around me, indifferent to the tragedy that had just played out in the penthouse that was the beauty of the city. It demanded strength, and it punished weakness. I hailed a taxi, not a limousine, just a regular yellow cab where, to the driver, asked, chewing on a toothpick. "Take me to the school," I said, settling back into the worn vinyl seat. "I have a grandson to pick up." As the taxi merged into traffic, I felt a sense of closure. The week was over, the challenge had been met. They said I would not last a week without them, but in the end, it was their vanity that had an expiration date, and I was just the one who checked the label. 3 months have passed since the doors of the St. Regis boardroom closed on my son and his wife, and in that time the natural order of the world has reasserted itself. Gravity, as I told Tyler, is a relentless force, and without the artificial anti-gravity machine of my bank account, they both fell hard and fast. I parked my car across the street from the new riverfront development site yesterday just to see it for myself. I did not get out. I did not roll down the window. I just watched through the tinted glass. Observing the final act of this tragedy, Tyler was there, but he was not wearing his Italian suit, and he was not sitting in an air-conditioned trailer shouting orders into a phone. He was wearing a neon yellow safety vest over a flannel shirt and heavy steel-toed boots that looked too big for his feet. He was holding a clipboard, standing in the mud, while a project manager, a man named Frank who used to work for me and who Tyler had fired 2 years ago, for being too old, screamed in his face, "Move that lumber to the south lot!" Mercer Frank was shouting, pointing a thick finger at a stack of plywood, "And do it before lunch, or I am docking your hours." I watched my son, the boy who used to complain if his steak was slightly overcooked, nod his head submissively. "Yes, sir," he said, his voice lost in the noise of the machinery. "I will get it done." He turned and began to lift the heavy sheets of wood, his soft hands struggling with the weight. He stumbled once, slipping in the mud, landing on his knees in the past. He would have thrown a tantrum. He would have quit. He would have called me to sue the mud for ruining his pants. But yesterday, he just stood up, wiped his hands on his jeans, and kept working. He kept working because he had to. He had $2.4 million in personal debts that I had unsealed when I revoked the trust protections, and he had a wage garnishment order attached to his paycheck, taking 50% of every dollar he earned. He was earning $18 an hour, doing the job of a junior site assistant, a job he should have done 20 years ago, right out of college. He looked tired. He looked older, but for the first time in his life, he looked real. The arrogance was gone, scrubbed away by the harsh friction of reality. He was no longer a CEO playing dress-up. He was a man learning the weight of a dollar the hard way. And he was doing it alone. The divorce papers had been served to him at the motel exactly 48 hours after the meeting at the penthouse. Brittany did not stick around for the poverty chapter of the story. The moment she realized the money was truly gone, she realized her love for Tyler was gone too. It turns out her vows were conditional, and the condition was a platinum credit card. I drove from the construction site to the Westfield Mall, located in the suburbs about 20 miles away. I walked past the food court, ignoring the smell of pretzels and pizza, and stopped outside the department store. Cosmetics counter, there she was. Brittany was wearing a black uniform, a smock that smelled of cheap perfume and despair. She was standing behind the glass counter, arranging lipsticks by color shade. Her signature acrylic nails were gone, replaced by short, practical ones. Her hair was pulled back in a severe bun, mandated by store policy. A customer approached a woman in sweatpants holding a crying baby, asking for a foundation recommendation. In the past, Brittany would have sneered at this woman. She would have made a cruel joke about her appearance. But today, Brittany put on a smile, a forced, painful smile that did not reach her eyes. "Of course, Ma, am Brittany," said her voice dripping with artificial sweetness. "Let me show you our budget-friendly line. It is on sale today." She was selling illusions just like she always did, but now she was a servant to the illusion, not the master. She had moved into a small studio apartment with 2 other roommates. Girls half her age who played loud music and left dishes in the sink. She was living the life she had mocked for years, and the irony was seemingly lost on her as she focused only on survival. I watched her for 5 minutes. She looked up once and her eyes scanned the crowd for a second. I thought she saw me standing near the escalator, but her gaze moved on. She was looking for a savior, a rich man to rescue her from the purgatory of retail. But the rich men knew who she was. Her reputation as a gold digger had gone viral thanks to her own live stream. She was trapped in a prison of her own making, sentenced to serve the public. She despised. I walked away without buying anything. I did not need to confront them again. The universe was doing a far better job of disciplining them than I ever could. That night I sat in the library of my new townhouse reading a book with Barnaby sleeping at my feet. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Tyler. It was the first time he had texted me in 3 months. I opened it, expecting a plea for money or a sob story about his back pain. But the message was short, just 5 words. The drawings were always you. I stared at the screen for a long time. Tyler had finally figured it out. He realized that the genius behind the designs, the safety of the structures, the success of the company, it had never been him. He had been walking on a bridge I built, thinking he was flying. He finally understood that he was a product of my protection, not his own talent. I did not reply. I deleted the message and put the phone down. Forgiveness is a bridge that takes time to rebuild, and Tyler had burned the blueprints he needed to lay the foundation. First stone by heavy stone in the mud of that construction site. He was suffering, yes, but he was becoming a man, and Brittany, she was suffering too, but she was becoming a memory. I looked out the window at the moon rising over the city. I had burned their empire down. I had stripped them of their names, and I had cast them out into the cold. But in the ashes of their destruction, I saw the faint glimmer of something new. Truth, and truth, no matter how painful, is the only foundation worth building on. The week was over, the lesson was learned, and finally I could sleep soundly, knowing that the bill had been paid in full. The Pacific Coast Highway stretched out before me like a ribbon of asphalt draped over the cliffs of California. A stark contrast to the gray concrete and freezing rain of Connecticut, I downshifted the 1967 Mustang, feeling the raw power of the engine vibrate through the steering wheel beside me. Barnaby sat in the passenger seat, his golden fur blowing wild in the wind, his tongue lolling out in a goofy grin of pure contentment, for a dog who had spent 5 years being yelled at for simply existing. This open road was heaven. I adjusted my sunglasses, breathing in the salty air that smelled of kelp and freedom. It had been 3 months since I walked out of the St. Regis, 3 months since I signed the papers that dismantled the toxic legacy of my son, and 3 months since I filed for custody of Leo. My phone rang through the car's Bluetooth system, interrupting the classic rock playing on the radio. I glanced at the screen and smiled, seeing the name Leo appear. "Hey, sport," I answered, my voice competing with the wind. "How was school today?" Grandpa Leo's voice came through, clear and happy sounding. Nothing like the terrified boy crying on the stairs. "Did you know that whales migrate past where you are driving right now? We learned about it in science class today." "Is that so?" I laughed, looking out at the endless blue expanse. "Well, I will keep an eye out for them. Are you ready for practice later?" "Yeah," Leo said. "Excited, coach. Says if I keep practicing, I might start next week." "Oh. And Grandpa, thanks for sending the new cleats. They are awesome." "You earned them, kiddo," said Softy. "I will see you at dinner. I am making tacos." "Okay, love you, Grandpa." "Love you too, Leo." The line went dead, and I let out a long breath of satisfaction. Leo was thriving. He was living in a house near the beach, attending a school where he was judged on his character, not his father. As donation, history, he was safe. He was loved, and most importantly, he was free from the toxicity that had almost consumed him. I looked in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see the ghost of the old Gus Mercer sitting in the back seat. The hunched-over old man who walked on eggshells. The man who apologized for taking up space, but the back seat was empty. Brittany's voice echoed in my mind one last time, a fading memory of a bad dream. She had stood in that marble kitchen swirling her wine and told me with such absolute certainty that I would not survive a week without them, she thought. Survival was dependent on their permission. She thought my life was a battery that only they could charge. I gripped the steering wheel tighter, pressing down on the accelerator, letting the Mustang roar as we sped around a curve, revealing a stunning view of the sunset over the ocean. She was wrong about everything, but she was most wrong about that, she said. I would not live a week without them, but the truth was I had been dying slowly every single day I lived with them. I had been dying of silence. I had been dying of disrespect, and I had been dying of a broken heart, watching them become monsters. But that part of my life was over, the funeral. For the old Gus was finished, and the man driving this car, the man raising that boy, the man breathing this air was finally, for the first time in a long time, truly alive. I looked at Barnaby, who barked happily at a seagull. "You are right, boy," I said to the dog. "Let us go home." And as I drove into the golden light of the California afternoon, I realized that the best revenge was not destroying their empire. The best revenge was simply living well without them. This journey taught me that the most loving thing a parent can do is sometimes the hardest thing of all, saying no. For years, I thought I was protecting my son by shielding him from consequences, but I was actually crippling his ability to become a man. I learned that family is defined by mutual respect, not just shared blood, and that dignity is a currency far more valuable than any bank account. Walking away was painful, but necessary, because you cannot save people who refuse to be saved, but you can always save yourself. If you enjoyed this story of justice and redemption, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more real-life stories. Let me know in the comments below, have you ever had to cut off a toxic family member to protect your own peace? I read every single comment. See you in the next video.